Welcome to my mind. My name is Ele Nichols, and you're listening to the EleAMental podcast. This is entry number 68. It is my great pleasure to introduce you to my best fiend, the Black Cat. She's on Instagram. Her link is in the description of this. It's the Black Cat Apothecary, underscores between each word, on Instagram. And of course, she also has a web store. If you go to the Instagram, there's a link there. And there's also a link in the description below in the listings of this podcast. I've been wanting to sit down and talk with her for so long. She is the person I go to when I need to hash things out, when I need to understand something about my life that I'm not getting a clear perspective on. While she does have a spiritual, not only a spiritual nature, a spiritual path in her life, she's a practicing witch, comes from a long lineage, actually, of witches, this beautiful French lineage that's filled with lots of ritual and tradition and this passing on of knowledge, which I actually think is very beautiful. It's very different than what I was raised up in, where it's passed on, but it's kind of like McDonald's. And while she's getting these wonderful rare recipes with herbs, I'm the closest I'm getting to herbs is the Colonel's secret recipe. That's about it. So she's brought a lot of information about what it is to be a witch, because of course, when I was a Christian, that was the one thing that you had to stay away from, that you had to be afraid of, often talked about, villainized. And it's funny now that I know so many people who practice different forms of occult or belief or spiritualism. And I'm in the middle of it, not practicing anything, but I still find it fascinating and interesting. And I'm finding things to be more interesting than I initially considered. I was pretty shut down to all concepts before. And I'm not saying that I declare that I believe something now. What I'm saying is, I think you can gain a lot of perspective by just hearing people out, what they have to say and what they have to share. The Black Cat is definitely one of those people who I will sit down and listen to for hours. And it's not something that's proselytized. I'm not ever being trying to, what am I trying to say? She's not the kind of person who's trying to recruit you. She's the kind of person who's trying to communicate and reach you. And I feel like that is something so rare, because it always feels like we're surrounded by people who they want you to join their cause. They want you to think like them. This is a person who doesn't do that. You often just end up being attracted to her. She's like magnetic. And we do talk about that, but it's something that I feel like needs to be shared. And this is the first time we're going to do this, and we have plans to do more. But we'll talk about that another time. I just want to get right into this, so everyone enjoy. This is my conversation with the Black Cat. I mean, we know a lot of people here in Los Angeles, and you know how I am. I do not like to use the term friend unless I actually am that person's friend. Mm-hmm. For me, it's not the click of a button. It's time, patience, energies, actual investment, and not really so that you can get something out of it necessarily, but for the connection that you get from people. And we've had a lot of bad experiences with people where all they want to do is they want to get around us. Now, we're different people in the fact that, like, a lot of people are very standoffish with me, and they think I'm cold, and so they don't try to approach. And I can appreciate that now. You, on the other hand, are very different, because people come to you exactly, and they look to you for like everything. They want you to be their spiritual advisor. They want you to be their counselor. They want you to be whatever it is in that moment that they want you to be. So share a little bit like about what we were talking about before, like what is some of the major problems that you encounter with these kinds of people who are constantly like, just the vampires, like they want something from you all the time. So,
well, I think the issue with some of the questions I receive or requests, is that nobody's making decisions for themselves anymore.
Yeah.
So I feel like, I'll get maybe 50 questions a day and it ranges from, should I take this job? Should I buy a house? The last one was, should I have this baby? So they can be pretty detrimental questions. And I don't think people are stopping to realize that they're putting their faith in someone and someone else's decision and not making their own decisions. And I think it's an issue. And I think that the blind trust that I don't know. I don't think that people should be just blindly trusting anybody like that.
I agree.
To make those kinds of life decisions because they're so important. And
unless they want to pay you like thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, honey, here you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just do this. You're going to be fine. Oh, that house? Yeah, it's a lot.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Have that affair.
Take it.
No problem.
Exactly.
All right. You can just wire that straight into my account. Here's the number. Yeah. People want to abdicate all responsibilities because they don't want to be like, we were talking about this before, and we're going to be rehashing some stuff as we get into this, but it's like exactly that. People don't want to be held responsible for their own bad decisions.
Right.
So they'll have someone else make them for them.
Right.
So that way they have someone to blame when shit doesn't work out. And if things go well, then they're like, well, clearly I made the right choice going to this person. But it's like, what's the problem? You really didn't make any choice at all, except to make no choices and to let someone who may not have your best interest at heart or may completely be misrepresenting themselves, or regardless of what you feel about whatever spiritual connection or whatever it may be, you're still putting all your trust and faith and not in yourself at all. You're just completely just like, nope, it's okay. My entire life gets fucked up. It's no problem.
Right.
It's just like, it's really sad to see that, but it keeps happening more and more. And I see you have to deal with it all the time.
I do. And it's not even just the responsibility of the person to understand that they're going to someone who is labeling themselves as a healer, a seer, a card reader, a witch, whatever you want to call yourself. It's their responsibility. It is also the healer, the tarot card reader. It's their responsibility to kind of understand that they are directing people in their lives, and it's very serious, and it's not just a buck to be made, or it's not just, something for status or to be recognized for doing something for someone. I think it's a big deal, and when people come to me and they get their cards read, or, we work on something together, I keep in mind the fact that they are going to listen to everything I have to say and take it to heart. They take it as gospel, and that I need to be careful with my words. And I need to make sure that ultimately the decision for what they're doing is always going to be theirs. So even down to, and I won't get too far into it, but even down to tarot reading, I give them questions so that they can guide themselves. It's more so presenting questions and options for them to choose what they feel like resonates with them and their intuition towards their life, more so than me giving them direct answers on what to do.
So it's more like helping guide them to the path rather than like, here's your answer. Yeah, I get that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but the problem is I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing a lot of Instagram witches or Insta witches out there, basically just, screaming at the top of their lungs that they are this, psychic know-all. I will tell you what's going on in your life and your future, and I have the answer to your problems, and just give me $400 and we can make it happen. Yeah. So that's the problem, is always, as you know, with something genuine comes the snake oil salesman. And yeah, it's annoying, actually.
Well, it's like, I can completely relate with what you're saying, because I might have my indifferences and opinions, especially about like religion in general, but like, I can tell the difference between, like, I don't just label, for instance, all pastors as scam artists, scumbags. Like, there are lots of them out there. And there's plenty of people who would take advantage of that, and plenty who do. Like they completely were like, don't even bother thinking. I've got all the answers you need because I'm your direct link to God. You don't need to read the Bible. You don't need to read any of that stuff. I got you. I got you covered. And then you have people who genuinely want to give guidance to people, but still leave the decision process in their hands. And the only reason that people would not want to go that path most of the time, I find, is because they can find some sort of financial gain or some gain of some sort by being someone's go-to, right? I mean, because it's like, and also too, it could just be that like the individual who maybe the tarot reader or maybe, you know, the Insta Witch or all these people, they also get this high, you know, this kind of ego trip when they have all these people coming to them and they're able to do something. And when they hear something positive, it only enforces this feedback loop and what they're doing. And, I mean, I know nowadays everyone wants to kind of feel important, you know, like,
Right.
I mean, well, everyone has always wanted to feel like to some degree that their life has had importance, sometimes to a large group of people, sometimes their family, whoever. But now it's getting to a place where it's like, the most unhealthiest behavior that you can imagine keeps manifesting everywhere. And like everyone has gone back to, I don't like adulting. Adulting is hard. Like, here, should I have this baby or not? You know?
Here, you do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's the kind of thing too, where I'm like, well, I mean, if someone really insists, then you better be getting paid for that. Cause I'd hate to be making those kind of decisions for someone's life. Like, can you imagine, like, I mean, it's not because of abortion or anything like that or whatever. It's about like, that's a heavy burden to be carrying. I have a hard time making my own decisions, you know, and taking responsibility for my own mistakes. I can't imagine taking on someone else's too on top of all of that.
Oh, not at all. I know.
So no wonder you want to like scream and run away.
It gets to be intense. It really does. And, you know, I have to stop and think. Like, I have to take that time before I answer. And I'm really glad that a lot of these things are email and, you know, direct message, because
they don't have
it
to
gives
see you
me a
thinking.
second. Yeah, I get to think a beat and then go, okay, how am I going to address this? You know, and also I like to go about it more as a guidance counselor role. I really do. In my practice, I'm definitely more of a listener and a counselor as far as, you know, asking them questions back and letting them figure it out for themselves, but just kind of guiding a little bit. I don't like to give full throttle answers of what to do with someone's life. I mean, I can barely make a decision for lunch. I don't need to worry about.
We are constantly always like, oh, what do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you want to eat? I don't know. Okay. All right. We've eliminated so many options here. But I mean, it's like one thing I have been talking about a lot on this podcast since I just restarted it literally tonight, because I'm recording these all back to back to back. So this is happening in the same night as I record the other one, but it's on my mind, boundaries. So especially with what you're talking about, right? When you're giving advice to people, when do you set down the boundary that enough is enough? Like, for instance, someone just keeps coming back to you constantly and they keep coming with the same question, but it's maybe about a different person or it's a slightly different situation. But at its core, it's the same thing. Like, when is your boundary? Or they're trying to overstep. They don't want you to email. They don't want a phone conversation. They don't want FaceTime. What they want is literal FaceTime, where they want you to be with them. So how do you set those boundaries? Like, when do you set those boundaries?
I usually set them up front. So what I do, even though a lot of the majority of my business is done, you know, via my online store or, you know, a lot of it is online. I'm upfront about it and I say, these are my working hours. So I try to operate as a store, even though I don't, as a physical store, even though I don't.
Right.
And I like to, you know, I have an open door policy, which I know that people can come to me and ask me at any time. I'll check, you know, my messages whenever and address them. But I also have kind of operational hours where that's my time to, you know, have my one-on-ones with certain people. And right up front, you know, they know the days that I'm not available. They know times that I'm not available. Do not disturb is my friend. But
it's 3 a.m. Let me begin to text message.
Do not disturb.
Yeah.
I love the iPhone.
Well, because everyone's tragedy is always after midnight.
Oh, always. Always. Oh, yeah, because I get the witchy drunken dial, so that happens too. So, establishing that up front, if it gets to be too much, then I just have to revisit that with them and say, hey, these are my hours. These are the days that I don't work. This is what I can offer you right now. And then if I can't handle them, and it works with any situation, if I can't come to a good conclusion on the situation, I will hand them over where I need to. If there's someone else, or if there's, a doctor to be seen, a lawyer to be seen, an actual psychiatrist to be seen, then I'm going to hand them over and say, here, let me refer you to somebody that can help you, because I'm not, equipped to handle this.
See, that's when I come into play, because I'm not the person that people go to immediately, or like everyone comes to me. No, just the people who are actually important come to me, like you. Because then you ask me, like, I'm getting a bad vibe off of this person. What should I do?
What should I do?
And I'm like, cut them loose or whatever. Or,
yeah.
Or I usually, well, to be honest, I don't give you direct advice like that either. What I say is that, do you feel good about it? Do you feel like this could be a long-term problem? Do you think this person has become dependent, or are they really going to start resting way too much on your shoulders? Because every once in a while, it's just like, you have, again, that's what we're talking about. You have to set those boundaries. So nope. And sometimes you have to set them up front, because you can just see the person from a mile away.
Oh, you can. Yeah. You can definitely. And there's a lot of eccentric people, and I use that term loosely. Within the metaphysical world, there just is. Yeah. There's a lot of people that are, practitioners, or,
they're looking for the variety platter.
They are. They are definitely, at the buffet. But, it gets interesting.
Yeah. Pure
I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it totally gets, it can get a little stalkery. It can get a little, I've had those moments already where I've been like, okay, I need to shut this down, because if not, it's going to get a little bit weird. People get very attached to me very quickly. And I feel for them, because they form this bond with me right away, and it's so intense right away that they want to spend all their time with me, and all of their energy goes into getting my attention, and it just gets it gets to be so much, and I have to remind them of we have a client professional relationship, and again, the same thing with you. I don't have a lot of people that I call friends. Friends are definitely my elected family that are, just there.
It's a place of high honor.
It really is. I have a handful of people that I consider my friends, and, some people aren't like that. Some people have, 300 friends, and I don't play by those rules.
I do understand the draw, the desire to be around you. The first day that I met you, I broke into your house later and raided your underwear drawer.
I knew that was
Tried on a few things.
I knew it.
I think you were at my place, though, at the same time doing the same thing.
Breaking into your underwear drawer? That's exactly what I was doing.
Yeah. But anyway, but it's that's where we live, It's just like you constantly have people who, for you, it's more like life advice, and people wanting something very meaningful and very important. And I've always kind of steered clear of those areas. Like early on, when I first started this podcast, actually, I would have people, I had questions on the regards of like people saying like, I'm married and I have 2 kids. I'm 45 years old and my wife has no idea that I've been cross-dressing in the closet, and I'm thinking I'm transgender.
Wow.
And they're asking me, am I wrong for not coming out, or should I come out? And I've had this, and I've shared those with you in the past too. And I'm like, I don't even know where to begin with something like that. I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, that's again, someone completely just sacrificing their choice. And what, am I going to be responsible for? Because that's a difficult situation.
That's a hard thing to unpack for sure.
You want to tell anybody who's in the closet to come out. That's the natural desire.
Right.
But then you start making it more complicated. So now there's a wife.
Oh, yeah. It's affecting all these other people.
Right. And what that means is that there's been someone you've been married to for a specific amount of time. In this person's case, it was like 20 years. And, the problem is that never come out. You've been lying to them for that entire time. Because no matter what you want to blame society for, for not accepting trans, it's still, you're lying and you're being deceptive to people, not for nefarious purposes, but still.
Right.
You have deceived somebody,
right.
Someone incredibly close. And then you add children to that mix.
Yeah, that's where it gets really dicey.
Yeah, and that's just where it's like, I can't tell you a direct answer on that, and I can't be the one that you go to for this. All I can tell you is that, like, for me, I didn't have that problem. I'm single. It was just me coming out to members of my family. Right. And while I have a religious family, I did have some assurances that it would be hard for members of my family, but it wouldn't be something that they would turn their backs on me about. It's just my issue is that they just don't really want to ever talk about it. Like, they want to kind of pretend like, oh, okay, we're aware of this, just don't ever show us. We can pretend like it's never going on. But, in that situation, I'm like, I don't have your answers. And I don't even know what I would do in that situation. I don't know. I mean, because it's just like, again, other lives in the balance and
That's the thing. Look at the domino effect that would be for that entire life and families' lives and everything involved. I mean, that's huge.
Well, that was 2013. And I actually am friends with this person through a social network. And I have seen how this unfolded for them. They ultimately made a choice. They came out. And that was followed by divorce and their kids hating them and a lot of things. And I'm like, yes, exactly why I will not make a decision like that for someone else.
Yeah.
And I can't, as much as, again, like I said, love to tell everyone to come out. I can't. I can't be the one to tell you like, oh yeah, come out. Absolutely. Don't, because it, like I said, it can be destructive to you, to your family. And it can be sometimes, I hate to say it, more selfish, because you're putting so many lives. There's not a delicate way. There's not a way that you can do that gracefully.
Right.
It's just, it's like pulling a knife out of a wound. It's going to bleed. And you just hope that you're able to put enough pressure on it in time and sew it up fast enough so you don't lose too much blood.
Right.
And it's like, so I'm not going to be the one to pull the knife out for you. Right. Hell no. But I'll stand on the side with a Band-Aid if you do. So, but so early on I had those things, but it shifted because when people started to get like, I'm not giving you that kind of advice for your life. I'm telling you what I've gone through. Hopefully that can help you make some decisions for your own, know what it's like coming out, have some experience. It's not ever going to be the same for everybody. My story is different than every other person who's ever come out. My transition, whatever that may be at the moment, it's never something that is just one singular thing. It's complicated, but there are some things that can still be passed around, information, knowledge, love, that can be beneficial. But I'm not saying I've completely lost my train of thought. But it's nowadays, like, what I have to deal with is people like, oh, you're an artist. You're an editor. You're a really good video editor. And that's what I dealt with early on before I ever came out, was just people wanting to take advantage of whatever talents I have and using me for that. There's still, even though you have people coming to you for advice, it has to feel similar.
It does. It does. Sometimes it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard because you hit that area where you're like, okay, are you asking me my advice because we're friends, or are you asking me, my advice because you're asking, you want your cards read, or you want me to make you a candle, or, it can get a little here and there with that. But, it's not always the best feeling. Like, that's,
Well, I mean, it's why I'm glad you're in my life.
Oh, for sure.
Right. Because otherwise I'm like, well, everyone's fake.
Yeah, exactly.
Friendship's an illusion.
Yeah, right? We're like proof to each other that there's still actual friendship.
Pretty much, honestly.
We still exist. You're still
Yes,
here.
it got pretty much that desperate.
I know.
I mean, because it's not that there's not good people that I know, but there's definitely not a lot of people who don't just drive me crazy. And I mean, to some degree, I mean, like all relationships, good ones will still drive you crazy no matter what. But this is different. This is like sometimes, because I mean, we still move around in a lot of the same social circles. And sometimes I observe, sometimes I'm a part, but like there are people who have, we're part of so many alternative communities.
Right.
Right.
Yes, we are.
I'm a goth in LA, so that basically means anywhere I go, I'm a part of an environment that is very clique based with a lot of people with a lot of social dysfunction issues and stuff like that who don't have the ability to, appropriately emote or communicate. And you're in that kind of environment. And so that's why they're so tight knit with their base of people, because they're afraid.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Right. And I deal with social anxiety, all of that, very much. But I still have to figure out a way to introduce myself and to communicate with people. But it gets very, very difficult because it can feel like you're the only one trying to do that.
Right.
And everyone else is almost resisting it because they're not. In a way, they kind of wear their anxieties with a badge of honor, like, oh, this is just the way that I am. And they don't think of it as something like that they can improve upon.
Right.
So with a lot of people, that's what it feels like, is that, oh, I'm a hot mess. It's just me. It gets real frustrating because you just want people to have some sense that they're aware of their flaws and what's going on, or they're trying to. Some grasp, and they're trying to improve.
Well, I feel like mental illness at this point has become a brand itself. So it's not
another trend.
Yeah, exactly. People just want to have another hashtag to slap on their post.
Yeah.
However, I think that the idea of clicking up is, I mean, honestly, you're pissing in the wind, because what is the point of going out and being social if you're just going to talk to the same, 5 to 10 people the same night of the week, and not let anyone else in? That's not the point of going out. You're going out, to be social, to meet new people, to have experiences, and you're not having that if you're in the same group of people.
Right.
And also, it's prickish. It's just not a nice thing to do. And it becomes high school all over again. So there's a few things there with that. That's also annoying. But this is also one of the reasons why I don't keep a lot of people around me. I am definitely, when it comes down to, me personally, my social interactions when I'm out, I'm not really a social butterfly. I'm more of like a hummingbird. Yeah. So I will buzz around, see everybody for a couple of seconds, meet new people, pollinate say this hi. Flower over here, exactly. And we bounce over here. Exactly. That's me. So I like to keep it light. Yeah. Keep it sweet, keep it light, and then get out.
See, I guess I wouldn't have a problem with clicks, because I can also see I prefer to be with somebody. But that's not because I'm going to my intention is to spend the entire night with them and block everyone out, right? My intention is I like having someone around that I can kind of touch base with and have a little bit of backup, but then be able to kind of intermingle with other people. Sometimes with you in particular, you're better at like just introducing yourself just out of nowhere than I am. My strength is after that. Like I can communicate. I can have a really great conversation. I can be very flirtatious. I can do all of that, but it's actually like getting into that, conversation to start with. That's where I can be awkward. And I recognize that flaw with me, because I just don't know how to start it. Right. But, so I understand why people do gravitate to being in a group of people, because sometimes you might have other people who are stronger at doing certain things and can be more outgoing and introduce you to new people. But that's not what we see. No. Like what we see is just people just flocking together, and they stay in that group the entire night. Sometimes you hear people say it's about safety. And that's understandable. I mean, like, it can be dangerous. It can be very dangerous.
Right.
And I'm sure if, you know, I were a born woman and not gender fluid, it would be a lot more complicated for me too.
Right.
You know, as it stands, I can take care of myself, just DNA, genetics.
Yeah.
But for other people, I understand that, like, need for safety. And you also have a lot of predators who also roam, and, well, typically they roam by themselves.
Yeah.
And so I do understand why it can be very difficult to initiate all of that. But, like, what do you think is, like, you know, how do you think, like, people can, like, kind of get past that? You know, like, do you think that we will get past that even? Or do you think it's kind of like here to stay? And is that really a result of how we're interacting with each other now, you know, through technology and everything else?
Well, being like the cynic that I am, of course, I think I'm going to go with the latter, because I feel like we're kind of doomed. I do. I feel like we are just this doomed society at this point to, you know, we're going to go with what we know, and then everything else is the enemy. And, you know, it's kind of, well, people as of right now in 2019, we are guilty until proven innocent. And that goes for our social groups as well, and newcomers and new people that have moved to Los Angeles and all of these things. Everyone is kind of like, well, who's that?
Yeah.
And that mentality is what kills everything in the crib, because, it, you know, you can't get past that. It's not, oh, you're new. Hey, nice to meet you. I haven't seen you before.
Yeah.
What's your name? You know, like that kind of thing. And then not to have that followed up with, what do you do? Would be nice.
Right.
Any other question actually would be a more...
I would appreciate someone, like, if I stick out my hand for a handshake, for them to shake my hand.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then I would appreciate, like, I don't
contact?
know.
That would be nice.
Hi, my name is Elle. What's your name? No? No? Nothing? Okay.
Okay.
Got it. You know.
Yeah, what happened to that?
Right. Like, have you ever been out and you're just, like, with a group of people and no one introduces you?
Oh, I hate that feeling.
Yeah.
That's the most rude on all levels.
Yeah. You know, you handle it well. Like, I've never seen you in a situation where you haven't been able to introduce yourself. And generally, you do have people who always notice you, right? Because you're well known. Even though you don't want to be.
I know.
But me, on the other hand, I mean, it's funny, like, people know my stuff online and they see my pictures online. When I'm out in person, I can have the ability of kind of, well, not disappearing, but for whatever reason, I don't get noticed as much with all of that. And I think I do appreciate that. I don't think I'd want to constantly, you know what, I used to think I wanted more what you had. Yeah. Yeah. And then I actually saw it in play and I'm like, oh, this is awful. I have to pretend to be nice and like people. You've actually convinced me. No more interactions with people. I'm ordering a nice, high quality sex doll from Japan, and it's going to learn to say my name.
There you go.
And I'm never going to have sex with it because I think that's weird. But we're going to have some real meaningful conversations.
She'd be like the perfect friend for me, though.
Pretty much. Work. Yeah. I mean, you know, you'll probably have sex with it like all the time. Like
anytime you leave this house.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And then I'll have to, you know, get a divorce with my sex doll, and that'll be a complicated ordeal.
Well, I can guide you to a lawyer for that.
Yeah. I specialize.
And it's gone full circle.
Well, I specialize in sex doll, divorce, and separation.
Oh my God.
There's a lawyer for that.
I will guide you to legal advice.
Well, I mean, you know, I know there's definitely, because I do feel pessimistic about it too, and I've changed. You know me. I always try to excuse people, anytime
relate, that ever understand. Come in with a negative about someone, you are there to fire back with a positive every single time.
I'm always like, and now she'll be like, oh, that person, why are they wearing that? I'm like, well, you know, maybe there's, you know. Well, maybe they just don't really have any style. Maybe they need a little bit of help. I don't know
any better.
You're kidding.
And I'm like, burn them in hell.
Maybe you can help them a little bit. Yeah, and then like I actually hear what they have to say for like 2 minutes, and then I'm like, oh yeah, you were right. Kill it with fire.
Calls are like a Caesar.
But it's I don't know. I really, I don't want to be pessimistic about it. And I kind of have to force myself not to be, because I can't be too pessimistic.
I know.
In this friendship.
Yeah, I try not to either. I just...
But it's okay. See,
it's so hard for me.
I've told you this many times before. I appreciate it. I'm glad to see someone who's not trying. People feel like they have to be. I was about to say nice. I'm like, no, you are nice. It's not really the problem. Unless someone pisses you off, then no more Mrs. Nice Cat. That's for sure.
No.
But the problem is that you go out, you interact with too many people, and it's just, I don't know. I mean, I'm really running out of excuses why people do the crazy ass shit that they do. Because it's not even the way they dress most of the time. Because that's like one thing I'm like, oh, that can be changed. That's clothes. Yeah. No, it's about the way people talk, the way people act, how they treat each other. I mean, even people trying to do like the right thing go about it the wrong way.
Exactly.
Like social justice is like, do I believe in social justice? Absolutely. I want to see people, represented fairly. I want people to have like a good, decent life and not be, held down by all of these like stigmas and all of that. But a social justice warrior, that's where it's like, that's really testing me. I mean, it's just like, it's someone who almost feels like what we're talking about here is like, I've been a lot about conversations. I want to have conversations. I really want to talk to people. If I'm going to connect with someone, I want to connect with them. But the problem is that everything is going away from that. It's like, it's not about connection anymore. It's about like a social justice warrior's job is to tell you what you've done wrong, what you've appropriated, like they don't want to talk to you about that. They just want to inform you that you've done wrong. And they want to let everybody else know you've done wrong too, so they can publicly shame you. So it's kind of like its own justice system. Right. And it's very frustrating. And we know so many, and some of them I'm like, couldn't give a shit about you. So I'll say whatever the fuck I want. And there's some people I'm like, you're a decent person, but you're really sticking to your guns on certain things. And it's really starting to piss me off. But I still want to like you. It's really hard.
Right.
I know what your approach to it is. It's just like, burn them down.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yep. Just burn them down.
Just burn them down.
Enough said.
We don't need to clarify that. No. Just burn them down. Just, go ahead and light that match up there. Oh, we got a nice little fire going on. And then we're going to put them in a little kerosene. Got to light them up with a little kerosene. And then we're just going to go ahead and put that fire right down on them. All right, there we go. Oh, that's a nice fire. Oh, yeah, that's hot. Yeah. Now you just need to pull out some marshmallows and some chocolate and a little graham cracker and make a nice little s'more off it. Oh, my God. It's getting late. But, yeah, so, I mean, I guess this has really just been about, like, the different kinds of people that you end up running into and how you deal with them. And I mean, I guess my best advice about, people who want to have you come into their life to be their new, it's like Jesus or whatever deity isn't enough anymore to guide your life. You want a physical voice. And people don't trust ministers on TV anymore because too many of them have been exposed as being con artists, or they want too many planes. So instead, we go to Instagram, we find people who are now the next generation of that.
Oh, the new idols.
Right. Disconnected from mainstream religions. Right. Going back, people love the current trend, the fad of the occult, of being a new goth.
Oh, they do. Oh,
all of that stuff.
Oh my God. Yep.
So it makes sense that they would go find their Insta witch and, pay them to start making vital life decisions for them. Important.
Right.
Man, I mean, I'm going to put this out there. Anybody have a horror story about any of that? I'd love you to email me at info@elenichols.com, because I want to hear that story. I want to hear, like, have you paid money to someone and gotten advice, or did you just have a spiritual guidance person or someone of influence in your life who is completely like taking control? Because I mean, that's when it starts going into cult territory for sure. you know. But I'd be really interested to hear those stories.
Yeah, so would I actually.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I try to, and I know, a lot of the big players, so to speak, in the city that are really in the nation that have quite a following, and I try to pay attention as much as possible to what they're saying and how they're saying it, and sometimes there's a couple red flags. So yeah, I would be really interested to know, if any of that's happened. Right.
I would, like I said, please email me. Link is always in the description of the podcast, because that'd be something I'd love to sit down again and talk about, like read those stories and just be like, oh my God, what did you do?
Oh my God.
You're paid money for this? I would really be interested in that, because, I mean, I've heard those stories for a long time in the religious world. I mean, I saw them play out.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And we're just not really hearing about them yet, because I think it's just still too new, maybe. But, I mean, not tarot reading necessarily, but let's face it, a lot of people go for that. The ones that you hear about, a lot of people go to it for novelty, or it's like a shop, or they're on the pier and there's a tarot reading shop kind of thing. Or they're in Hollywood. Hey, let's go to a tarot reading house and stuff like that.
Too, and I think it's not as heard of either, because I also feel like the self-proclaimed healer / card reader, etc., they are very easy to make excuses. The fact that you're using a medium such as tarot cards that can be interpreted in so many different ways, they use that as, definitely in their favor. So let's say you had somebody who was a client and came in and had an issue, and they were reading their cards and, laid down whatever.
Right.
And this person goes out and makes some really bad decisions and, comes back blaming the person who read the cards. It's really easy for that person to say, well, that's one interpretation of the cards. It could have been that it meant this, this, or this.
Right.
So they're kind of covering their own ass in their own way, That's the problem too, with this situation, is because there is always the disclaimer of it is witchcraft or divination or whatever, what have you. And it's very easy for error to happen. And it's also easy for, things to mean something else, because something, whatever.
It's
easy to excuse.
Right. It's one of the things I actually really appreciate how you practice. And I've told you this a few times, but there's a lot of people who would like to approach this as if it's an exact science.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But I know for a fact that you can go to 10 different tarot readers and they will pull the same cards, and they might have a different interpretation of what those cards mean.
Absolutely.
And again, it's less about the cards.
Right.
It's more about the connection you have at that moment with the person. And those are just a medium,
right?
In
those
a
are
way,
a tool,
a tool to help you interact and connect, and almost like a Rorschach test. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, what do you see? That's not what it is. It's just an ink blot. But what do you see? And that helps pull out some of the imagery from your mind, and so I can see the benefit in that. But even in the things that you practice that aren't necessarily like tarot reading, in your normal witchcraft, the thing that I again, like I say, I appreciate is there's an honesty about it. There's not this thing where you think, oh, this is an exact science and this is exactly what you do. And, this, and this will get you here. It's a lot of how you're feeling, how you feel in that moment, how you're connecting, your intention, things that can't really just be explained simply.
Right.
But you like to incorporate that with actual knowledge, actual wisdom, things that also help people as well. So I wanted to put that out there because...
Well, thank you.
I mean, again, people who've listened to this podcast now, I don't have faith. I don't believe. Really. I mean, really. And it's not really because I'm like, I'm convinced that nothing is real and all the spiritual stuff is fake or anything like that. It has more to do with just a lifetime of, being stuck in something I don't want to be in. And,
Right.
and I'm enjoying not having to be committed to anything, you know, but it doesn't mean that I can't have people around me that I can genuinely appreciate and hear your point of view, and you're never trying to push your ideologies, your beliefs, your ideas on anybody. It's always just open and with love. And I mean, again, that's not something you see very often. You want people to be more like that. I would probably be more open to, and I am actually, with Christians who act that way for sure, or anybody of any belief, because that's a place where you're like, I have my beliefs. This is what I believe. This doesn't have to be what you believe, you know?
Right.
And we can still talk and we still can communicate. We don't have to be enemies over this. And I know sometimes that does go against some people's belief systems, but I'm glad they're going against those things.
Right.
Because, I mean, just when you know something is wrong, it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to put that out there because...
Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
But, yeah, so, I mean, I think we've pretty much covered everything, and we'll get into it next time.
Yes.
And like I said, please send us your juicy stories about your, especially if it's happened online through Instagram or Facebook, and you have consulted with some sort of spiritual guru, someone who uses at least more than 15 hashtags for every post that they put. Like, what is the most generic witch post on Instagram, you think?
The generic witch post?
Like the one you see way too often. Is it a burning, like, 7-day candle or something?
It's candles, it's tarot cards, it's spirit boards, Ouija boards, it's...
I see too many Ouija boards.
So many. So many floppy black hats. There's just so many.
Yeah, I've made my, I've put Harry Potter symbols on my demonia boots.
Oh, for sure. Yes, exactly. For sure. That's definitely the Insta-Witch. And yeah, and if you don't have a pentagram harness, then, you know, what have you got? That's pretty much the long and short of that.
Well, guys, I want to go ahead and mention where you can find the Black Cat online. First of all, there's the website where if you are looking actually for her to craft you any of the items that she has in her store, candles or other particular items, go visit blackcatapothecary.com. That's BLKCATAPOTHECARY.com. I'll also put the link in the description of the podcast. And she's also on Instagram. It is the Black Cat Apothecary with underscores. But you can probably just do a search, and it's a golden logo with a black cat in it. I don't know who designed that wonderful, amazing logo that you have.
Oh, I know.
But it's a beautiful logo.
Only the best for the black cat.
Absolutely. Very, very Chanel.
Oh, very.
But just do a search and you will be able to find her. She's pretty easy to spot. And again, I'll have that link as well in the description. Thank you very much for joining me here, Bestie.
You're welcome, Bestie.
And we will talk to you again in the future. And guys, as always, stay extraordinary and escape the ordinary. Goodbye, everybody.